Hello YouTubers, welcome back to the Talking Shop channel. We're in the cold part of the shop today. It's winter time here, northern Michigan. We've got a couple projects of my own to work on. We're not doing anything billable right now. This is my own project. Got my forklift here. I use it around the shop, use it around my house. And anytime we got to lift anything, move anything. I got a man basket anytime we got to go up high, change a light, whatever. I use the old forklift here, and the last time I used it, we had a little problem with the generator. I'm going to zoom you guys in, show you what we got going on, and we'll get a course of action on how we're going to fix it. So take a seat and join. Okay guys, I got you zoomed in here on the front of the front of the engine on the forklift. You'll see right here we've got our two generator belts. This one here, if you remember my last video when we talked about generators, we took that generator apart for that Massey tractor I overhauled, and there was a tachometer drive on the back side of it, and I had mentioned that generators could have different options coming off the back side of it. We just didn't, you don't necessarily have to deadhead that shaft, you could do other things. Well, this is typical of an older generator that drives a power steering pump. Being that the power steering pump has an added load, we're going to use two belts. And that's what we're running into here. I'm going to zoom out. You can see the power steering pump right here, bolts to the back side of the generator. So we're going to zoom you back in. I'm going to show you the problem I got. I'm going to crank it over right now. You'll notice the generator doesn't turn, slipping the belt. So we've got a problem either with the power steering pump or we've got a problem with the generator. Belts are pretty tight. They got a little play in them, but they still should turn over that generator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a couple wrenches. We've got two bolts that hold the power steering pump on the back side of the generator. I am going to take those two bolts out and we're going to pull the pump off and just kind of lay it off to the side. And then we're going to hit the key again and see if she turns over. We're going to try and deduce is our problem with power steering or is our problem with the generator itself. So hang tight while I grab a couple of wrenches and we'll pull that pump off. Okay guys, we got the power steering pump pulled off. Two bolts, hold her on. It's just leaning off to the side. You can see it right here. It's just dipped down to the side. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the key again. And we're going to watch right here. And we're going to see if those belts move. I think the problem is in the generator because I moved the power steering pump with my fingers. But let's just give her the old college try here. Yep. So we must have a bearing or something onto the generator. So I'm going to finish pulling that off and we will get her up on the bench and we will see what exactly is going on with that thing. Alright guys, we definitely got a problem with the generator here. I can't even begin to turn it. So I don't know. Now this was charging before it started smoking the belts. This was charging, so you know, armature, brushes, that kind of thing, although I probably will put a set of brushes in it just because we're going to be inside of it. But what I'm assuming we got is a failed bearing. Now whether it's up here or it's on this is our drive end. This is how we're driving our power steering pump. You can see the tang inside there. And we got quite a bit of grease and oil in there, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this thing apart and we're going to see if we got a bad bearing or what's going on here. Definitely gonna have to put her through the parts washer, that's for sure. No, it's not that bearing. At least I don't think. Or typically I don't use my good snap-on screwdrivers to use as a prying device. And that is also typically what you don't want to do, because those are cast iron, they're easy to break. But that bearing spins rather freely. Whatever's going on is up in the front side of it. I will probably pull that bearing off there, and I will replace that one while we're in here. Let's see if she'll, yep. Quite a bit of oil and grease inside there. So this is definitely going to go in the parts tank. So now I think I'm going to have to get my impact on this armature. I'll have to pull the shiv off, because this housing where it's got, this is probably, well, it's hard to tell. I can't tell if it's a bearing or a bushing, but it's housed in this cast iron piece here. So we're going to have to take this nut off, pull the shiv off, pull the fan off, and then this piece here with the bearing in it comes off this side of the shaft. So the easiest way to do that is with an impact. Now we want to be careful here. We don't want to get too rambunctious with the vise on our armature here. What are we looking at there? Maybe. Nope, we got bigger than that. There we go, 15/16. Now, typically these pulleys don't just fly off there. We're not going to use the screwdriver for prying devices. Alright, well, we're not going to fight it. I'm just going to get the puller out. And we're going to go ahead and pull it. Now, I've got a bearing separator that I'm going to put in here, and I'm going to pull on the center section in between, because our belt rides here and here. The center one doesn't have a belt in it. So I've got a bearing separator. I'm going to come in, and I'm going to pull this way. I don't like using a jaw puller on these. It's a cast iron. You put too much force on one side and break it. I think that's a 3/4. Just want to make sure we get good and centered on the shaft. There we go. Easy peasy. Alright. Yep. She is junk. Woo, doggies. So I'm going to grab a little chisel, because there's our keyway. So that's keying our shiv to the armature shaft. Half moon key. Now, let's see if she's going to come off there. This might be where the problem lies, because I don't know, that bearing is shot big time. And it looks like it's spun on the shaft. So we may end up getting a generator. I don't know if we can fix this one, because if it's spun on the shaft, looks like it went a little bit. We gained on her some. We gained on her, she's coming. Just gotta keep taking her in steps here. Well, we gained some on it, but see, I'm afraid what's happened is it spun on the shaft and the inner race is welded to the shaft. I'm afraid that's what happened. I don't know for a fact yet. I can't quite see in there. And I can't quite get on the bearing race to hit it. I'm afraid we may be in for a new generator. Which if that's the case, I've got a good core. We do have a tag on it. This is just some 320 grit sandpaper. Looks like it's maybe been rebuilt before. And touch her on the wire wheel. The tag isn't doing us a whole lot of good. Looks like CJU7104A is the number on the tag. That is not a Delco Remy number. I'm pretty sure this is a Delco Remy generator. If I could just get that off. I don't know if my air hammer might get on that with a chisel. We've gained on some of it. If I had a little bit bigger bearing separator so I could get in behind here and might be able to pull it. I'm afraid with a jaw type puller you wouldn't want to pull here, I don't think. You'd end up busting this. You got to get in behind. You might pull through there. That might help. This would work from the outside, maybe. Might be able to put a little bit of pressure on it and help when I'm driving it, maybe. power ain't on there very good. Well, moving some. There's our bad bearing. And just as I feared, we're welded to the shaft. This is the inner race of the bearing that stayed on the shaft. But we're not going to give up on her quite yet. Alright, turn the compressor on. Alright, you guys are probably going to hear the compressor run. What I've got is I've got an 1/8 inch die grinder with a carbide burr. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to try and cut that race. That race is going to be hard. I'm also wearing a pair of safety glasses. saver. Got just a little bit yet. If anybody's ever used an 1/8 inch die grinder, you always wear your safety glasses. We nickname these the sliver giver. Also not a tool if you don't like the dentist. She's splitting apart. I could turn it around and cut it in another spot if we had to. Take it off in a couple of pieces, but I don't want to pry too hard in these coils. I just thought maybe if I could sneak in there. Ah! All right. Careful here, we don't nick our threads. Success! Woohoo! All right. Okay guys, I'm going to run this stuff through the parts cleaner. I'm going to finish taking this apart. We'll see if we can get the other half of the bearing out of here. Try and find a number on it. Get this cleaned up. We'll get some parts coming. When I get all the parts here, I'll bring you back and we'll do our electric checks again like we did on our other one. And then we'll go ahead and reassemble it. Okay guys, we're back. It's been a few days. I did some internet research. This is actually a good, I don't know if you can see that in the camera there. That is actually a good number. I googled it. This is a Presto light generator. It's not a Delco Remy, which is fine, but I didn't have any specs on it like I did the last one we did, so I wanted to show you guys when you have an unknown generator type, how you can figure out what you're dealing with. So this is so bad, even the terminals were not marked. So I went ahead and marked them with the Sharpie once I figured out what does what. So how did I determine that? How did I come to that? Well, if we look inside here, you will notice that this brush right here is insulated. You can tell by the insulating material that's between the holder and the body. So with that said, this brush is our hot brush, which is hooked to this terminal, which makes this our armature terminal. By process of elimination, that makes the other one the field terminal. And you can clearly look inside there and see that this stud is hooked to a wire that is hooked to both field coils. Let me zoom out just a little bit here. Okay. So that's how I determine which terminal is which. Now, and this is going to be very hard to see because I kind of had trouble seeing it, but if you look down in there, this is the ground brush, and right there, there is a black wire that is hooked to the field. So, if the ground brush is hooked to the field, that means whoops, I lost you guys. There we go. That means that the field is grounded internally, What does that mean if our field is grounded internally? Well, if you remember from the last video when we were talking about A-type and B-type, you'll remember that any time the field is grounded within the generator, that means the voltage regulator is controlling power to the field, which makes this a B-type. So we got a Prestolite generator, it's a B-type, field's grounded internally, we figured out what our two terminals are, we should be good to go. I don't see, there's a little wear on the brushes, but they're not too bad. This generator was charging right up to the point before it locked up. So I'm not going to get into the electrical checks like I did the last one. If you got any questions on those, you can refer back to my original generator video. In that one, we break everything down. I show you how I take my DVOM and I check everything. I'm not going to do that with this one because this one was charging. Our problem was we had a bearing failure. I did find bearings for it. There was a number on the old bearing. I crossed that over to 2 Nationals, and my local auto parts store actually had the bearings in stock for it. So I'm going to swing you guys around and show you a couple things with the bearings that I found. Nothing major. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. We should be able to go back together with this, but I'm going to get set up and I'm going to show you guys a couple things with the bearings, and then I'm going to go ahead and reassemble it. I don't know if I'm going to put it back on because, quite honestly, I had that forklift scheduled for an overhaul this winter. That engine, that little flathead Continental that is in that forklift, is breathing really, really heavy. It's getting hard to the point where it's hard to start. It's hard to keep the carburetor adjusted correctly because the engine is so low on vacuum. So I think I'm going to put it back together, and I'm just going to set it on there for now. If I decide not to overhaul it this year, it'd take me 15 minutes to put this back on and be back in operation. If I do decide to overhaul it, that's just one less step I got to do to get into the to get the engine up out of the chassis and get it on the stand. And that may be, if I do decide to overhaul it, that may be another video. That is a flathead, so it's a little bit different than what we're used to doing here in the shop, but nothing we can't accomplish, that's for sure. So, okay, hang tight. I'm going to get set up. I'm going to show you with a couple things I found with the bearings, and yeah, we'll get this thing reassembled. Okay, guys, we're back set up here. I got the armature and the vise, and I'm just clamped on it lightly. This is actually the bearing that did not fail. This one was still spinning on its own. It is a little noisy, and being that we're here, we're just going to go ahead and change them both. I bought 2 bearings. They're the same either side, so I bought 2 bearings. We're just going to go ahead and change it. And the only reason I'm showing you this is my preferred method to remove a bearing. Now, you could probably get in behind here with a small jaw puller, and this isn't pressed on that shaft that hard, so you could probably get it off. But this is a prime example. A bearing separator goes in behind the bearing and allows you to pull on the inner race, which is what you should be pulling on when you pull a bearing off the shaft. If you pull the outer race of the shaft, pull on the outer race of the shaft, if the bearing is on there with any kind of stoutness, it's just going to pull the bearing apart. We should be able, we're behind it, we should be able just to use a crescent wrench, and we should be able to slip this off. This is the dead end of the shaft. This is where this is the live end of the shaft. This is where the power steering pump hooks. And there we go. Okay. So, there we are. Looks like you had a... Oh, you want to know what that was? A spacer. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. We'll put the new bearings on. Yeah, we should be good to go. Now, if something does go south at some point, I can buy this generator off the internet or from Napa. Both of them offer part numbers for it. It could be ordered. I don't think we're going to get into that. I think everything's going to clean up fine. We'll be able just to reuse what we got, just replace the bearings in it. We should be good to go. One thing I did want to show you, flip this around. So here's our new bearing, and here's the case that it goes in, or the end of the case. Now this fits in there, and evidently it must have spun a little bit, because once you get this in there, it fits in there rather loosely. So I'm going to just put a couple dabs of JB Weld on that outer race. All we got to do is keep it from spinning. It doesn't fit quite tight like I like it. You shouldn't have to swat the crap out of it to get it in there, but you should have to tap it in a little bit. And this one I can put in with my hands. So I'm not gonna get crazy with it. I'm just gonna put a couple dabs of JB Weld, maybe in 3 or 4 spots on that outer race, put it in there, and when that JB Weld hardens, that'll hold that outer race from spinning in this case. Okay, that's all I got to show you for now. I'm gonna go ahead and get everything cleaned up, and we'll put her back together.